talking about?
And, you know, we
Just
walking outside the house, you could hike, you know,
Right.
hiking all over, and I loved it.
Right.
And, you know, I've hiked a lot of places. Well, since retirement and since moving here, Mona and I started hiking all over Europe.
Right.
Every year we would do at least one long distance hike.
Right.
Oh, while I was in Kentucky, I had a great hike, which was walking from John O'Groats, Land's End, in the southwest corner of Great Britain, all the way up to the northeast corner of Scotland, in near a town called John O'Groats, 1,400 miles.
And
Greatest holiday I ever had, but it took 6 summers to do it.
right. So you said it's like 1,400 miles, and you said it took 6. I thought you were going to say 6 months. I thought, wow, that's pretty good. It was 6 summers, so that was.
Yeah, and it was about a total of about 100 hiking days. I mean, we take breaks every once in a while. So it was about 14 miles a day.
Yeah.
It wasn't a uniform 14 miles a day. The longest I remember was about 21 miles in one day.
Wow.
And a rainy day.
21 days and miles in the rain is not. And did you? How did you do that? Did you plan ahead and have an itinerary, or you just stopped when you?
Well, yeah. It was really fun because at the end of one hike, one year's hike, we would go back. This was out of Lexington, and look at the photos we had taken,
Right.
and then we'd start planning for the next year with maps that we had and all that stuff. So it
Right.
even helped to make winters a little bit more enjoyable.
Right.
And so the British have wonderful maps for hiking. They're not designed for that, but they are wonderful for hiking. And we worked our way around. And there are a lot of paths in Britain. And in fact, I think in England there are no trespassing laws.
Oh.
Or have I got it mixed up with Scotland?
No. Yeah, I lived in England. I don't remember
And
any.
so we could cut across farmland and so on. And we hardly ever got lost.
That's remarkable. I was hiking this morning and I got lost in a park that has 3 miles of trail, so I don't quite know how I did it. I ended up on the street and had to ask directions. So yeah. So then when you went on your last, you said that something about being the lowest paid postdoc.
Oh, when I retired from Kentucky, Natasha was gone. I could go anywhere in the country. I mean, it was my choice. I knew a fair bit. I'd been around a lot, lived in a fair number of places. And Seattle was one of them, and I knew that Seattle was the most attractive place for me for all sorts of reasons. And so I moved here. And then, not long afterwards, I started working in a lab that I had spent sabbaticals in genetics department at UW. And so I would, when the discussions were appropriate, I would indicate that I was the oldest and lowest paid postdoc at the university, being paid nothing.
Right. And I somewhere I read, I don't think it's in the bio, but that you were associated with genetic engineering.
No.
No. Okay. So cellular biology would be okay, but not.
Well, the lab at UW that I was in was genetics, human genetics actually, but we worked with cells.
Uh-huh. Oh, I see.
On human cells.
Right.
But
Right.
it was something I could adapt to very easily.
Right. Something else I know. So you said when you were in the Army, you did those letters for the boys. And I don't know if that came first or if also at the same time, I know you've written a lot of letters to newspapers and editors and great activists on many different fronts and everything. Can you say a little bit about that side of?
Well, I think the greatest episode of my time writing letters was when I was in Boulder. The reason I say that is because, number one, this is most important, they would publish almost anything I wrote.
That's very useful. Makes you feel needed.
So it was encouraging.
Right.
And I would also occasionally have running battles with the editorial board. I mean, they would write editorials and I would criticize them and they'd come back. I always won.
Of course. That's why you kept doing it.
And so that was a good period of activism. I was very active also when I was in Boulder in trying to keep Boulder from growing. I was in fact, I think I didn't mention this, I was the head of a environmental group in Boulder.
An environmental group? What was that?
Actually, I was promoted, well, I don't know, promoted is the right word, but stimulated by a speech that Margaret Mead gave in Boulder. And we started this to fight the environment, to preserve the environment. The name I did not like, but it was not my choice, was PURE, Pure, People United to Reclaim the Environment. And I ended up being president of it for 7 years.
Well, looks good on the resume, president of Pure.
It's not on my resume. But just to brag a little, I will point out that this was in the 70s, I instituted a program of electricity-free Wednesdays because of the threat of the pollution, and we needed to reduce our energy consumption.
Right.
Didn't go over very big, but
Well, good for you.
But I was certainly thinking of that. And in fact, I was part of other groups, not so formal, I mean, they weren't organized in a group, to fight other kinds of environmental things in Colorado.
So I know so environment has been a big thing, right? And you've written letters about the use of fossil fuels, the automobile, and cutting back and.
Yeah. And no surprise that when after I retired and came here, that one of the first things I joined was pedestrian groups advocating for pedestrian matters.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I had something to do with improving the sidewalks in this neighborhood.
Oh, well, that's good.
Didn't carry on for very long, but some of the sidewalks were improved as a
Right.
result.
Well, I was very struck because in this memoir that you let me read, which I couldn't read it thoroughly, but I browsed almost all of it. It's this wonderful memoir, and it has at the back of it, there's a whole bunch of causes and letters, and like I was very interested in your views on the ways in which the United States is an imperfect democracy, or not the democracy we hold it to be, right? And,
yes.
And you talk a lot about proportional representation. And I thought, I mean, I was ready to sign up to your program. You made more sense than anybody else I've read on anything. I thought, of course, we should do that. So anyway, that was, did you follow that here? Have you written letters? Or?
There was, I was part of an organization that was dealing with election reform here. Unfortunately, it dissipated because a number of people who were deeply involved passed away.
Right.
And but there's still remnants of that, and I am a very strong supporter of an organization called Fair Vote that somehow is derived from the original
Right.
one that here in Seattle. And their main focus now is on what's it called? Ranked choice voting.
What choice?
Ranked
Ranked
choice
choice
voting. So
voting.
this is where you look at a ballot and you have a bunch of candidates and you say, who's your first choice, who's your
I
second
see.
choice, and your third choice. And that's increasingly spreading about the country. It's a long way to go, but
Is that being used somewhere? Do other countries have this? You know?
oh yeah, many countries do,
Uh-huh.
in different forms, but essentially that principle. In fact, the most recalcitrant countries in terms of getting proportional representation are Britain and many of its former colonies, or
Right.
some of its former colonies,
Right.
like the U.S.
Yeah. So, how are you, you know, I mean, I just would love to, you inspired me this idea of doing doing a publication firm out of University House. And I know a publisher that I think would be interested in publishing a series of pamphlets by different people of their views of things. And I wanted to start with your view of the government and democracy, and if we're taking, you don't even have to write anything new. I can just take it right out of the memoir.
We are a very imperfect democracy,
Right,
very imperfect.
right,
I mean, the filibuster seems to be on the front pages most of the time, but there's much more that's amiss in our form of government.
right. So I was curious, how do you think that, have you found people here that, you mentioned the political reform, election reform group that was here, right?
Yeah.
In University House?
No,
Oh, that was in
no.
Seattle.
Seattle, yeah.
Have you found congenial spirits here who are interested in ideas and the political impact?
Well, I'm sure we've talked here and there about it, but not, I haven't made any effort
Right.
of that sort here, no.
Well, you did do a series of lectures, you said, when you first came. What were those?
I did, Jim Boyles and I did a lecture on ranked choice voting
Uh-huh,
a couple of years ago.
right.
But I don't think I talked formally about election stuff.
Did you talk about biology?
Oh,
Is
yeah,
that-
I used to be part of the team on current issues on Saturday morning
Right,
with Jim Voss, and I would take about 15 minutes each time to talk about something scientific.
right.
I would be every week. And I've given some lectures on the understanding of the human genome, for example.
Lightweight topics like that, right?
Yes.
Right,
There was something that came up I want to say something about, but I can't think of what it is at the moment.
Well, I had asked you what your advice would be to people moving into University House, or people in general, or whatever. And I remember you said, I don't want to give advice, but, and then you said something very profound, which I've forgotten. But I don't know, do you have any words?
Well, I would encourage people who are looking into it and talking to the management to say, gee, I'm having some reservation about moving here because I hear the food's not very good. That's selfish, hoping that will get you to improve.
Right. Have you written any letters about improving the food, or have you?
No.
Maybe we should start a letter writing.
I've not written any letters to ERO
Right.
management.
All right.
I have voiced some
Right.
concerns,
Right.
but no, I have not. Actually, I just haven't been as active since I've been here as I was before.
You think that's in general being maybe happier, or is it being older, or combination?
Older and weaker.
Uh-huh.
I think the most activist thing I did was that we got a group together to advocate for improving the sidewalks and so on.
Right, right.
And we did achieve something.
And as a pedestrian, I'm very grateful to you for doing that. And I'm very grateful to you for agreeing to the interview, and I really learned a lot, and I really hope that, you know, we can start this, I'm quite serious about starting a little publishing thing with pamphlets of people's, and I also have read, for example, Barry Keene's oral history, and it's also fascinating in California and what he did, and so, anyway, thank you very much for joining me today. Is there anything, any last words, anything? I told you how in one interview I totally overlooked some aspect of her travel. She had done a lot of travel, and I never asked her about travel. Is there anything that I haven't asked you about that I should be sure
I
to?
think there was something I wanted to mention, but it's just, you know, a half an hour later from now I will remember.
Right, okay. Well, just don't remember it a half a minute from now. Anyway, thanks very much, Lester. I really have appreciated this.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you.